Who do you listen to? Do you listen to your parents, your grandparents, your teachers, your coaches? Or do you listen to those friends who lead you down the wrong path? Allow me to share a personal story from my past. During a winter day, I was working with my grandfather to earn money for the summer. Believing that going outside with just shorts and a jacket would be sufficient, I convinced myself that I wouldn't be cold and the task would be completed quickly. I would try to sneak out of the house, but I was unfortunately stopped by my mother. Just as I was about to leave, she insisted that I put on more clothing. Though I initially hesitated, I ultimately listened to her and added more layers, and as it turned out, it was a cold day, and I was more than grateful for listening to my mother's advice. By doing so, I avoided discomfort, and I had a more enjoyable working conditions with my grandfather. Now, if you would, please turn to 2 Chronicles chapter 10. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone to Shechem to make him king. So it happened, when Jeroboam the son of Nebat heard it. He was in Egypt, where he had fled from the presence of King Solomon. Then Jeroboam returned from Egypt, and they sent for him and called him. And Jeroboam and all of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam, saying, "Your father made our yoke heavy. Now therefore lighten the burdensome service of your father and his heavy yoke which he put on us, and we will serve you." So he said to them, "Come back to me after 3 days." And the people departed. Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who stood before his father Solomon while he still lived, saying, "How do you advise me to answer these people?" And they spoke to me, saying, If you are kind to these people, and please them, and speak good words to them, they will be your servants forever." But he rejected the advice of the elders had given him, and consulted the young men who he had grown up with, who stood before him. And he said to them, "What advice do you give me? How should we answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, 'Lie in the yoke which your father put on us'?" Now King Rehoboam displayed intelligence by recognizing the guidance for seeking the advice of the wise elders. In comparison, I made the mistake by not consoling my parents because I didn't like their response. Fortunately, my mother intervened and convinced me to wear additional clothing, which I am grateful for, and protected me during the cold winter day. However, Rehoboam's actions took a different turn. Despite receiving counsel from the wise elders, he disregarded their advice and turned to his peers for guidance instead. This decision to listen to his friends rather than the wise elders had significant consequences, which we learn from reading the rest of the story. Then the young men who had grown up with him spoke, saying, "Thus you should speak to the people who you have grown up, who have spoken to you, saying, 'Your father made our yoke heavy, but you made it lighter on us.' Thus you shall say to them, 'My little finger shall be thicker than my father's waist. And now whereas my father put a heavy yoke on you, I shall add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I shall chastise you with scourges.'" So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day, as the king has directed, saying, "Come back to me the 3rd day." Then the king answered them roughly. King Rehoboam rejected the advice of the elders and spoke to them according to the advice of the young men, saying, My father made your yokes heavy, but I will add on to it. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scourges. So the king did not listen to the people, for the turn of events was from God, that the Lord might fulfill his word, which he had spoken by the hand of Alaba, the son of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. Now when all of Israel saw that the king did not listen to them, the people answered them, saying, What share have we in David? We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to your tent, O Israel. Now see to your own house, O David. So all of Israel departed to their tents. After reading these last verses, we figure out that Rehoboam's decision to side with his friends instead of the wise elders. Rehoboam goes in front of the crowd of people to tell them exactly what his friend says, which was, My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add on to it. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scourges. Now, the people acted exactly how you think they would, by leaving and making their own country. So I'll ask you again, who do you listen to? Do you listen to your parents, your grandparents, your teachers, your coaches, or do you listen to those friends who lead you down the wrong path? I hope you choose the path of the wise, unlike Rehoboam.